gone from being exposed to about 500 ads a day back in the 1970s to as many as 5,000 a day today. Everywhere we turn, we see an ad for something. To break through the clutter, companies track and target us. A 60-year-old man who has kids in college and a summer home is going to see ads very different than, say, a single 35-year-old woman who's dating and has a busy career. Ads are about to get even more personal thanks to the next generation of digital billboards. Our next guest is Frank O'Brien, CEO of 5Tier, a company that bridges the gap between the ads you see in cyberspace and the ads you see in person. His secret? The little gadget in each of our pockets. Our phones, of course. Hey, thanks for joining us here on the Kim Komando Show, Frank. And let's start with the question on everyone's mind. How many data points do you think advertisers have on the average American?
First off, thanks, Kim, for having me on the show. Very excited to be on. On the average American, advertisers have always had not just 5,000, but tens of thousands of data points. The data that we're talking about, dates back decades. It's only recently been able to be activated and used. But this is no different than 30, 40 years ago when there was a phone book or there was historical research. It's just nowadays this data is more actionable in real time.
And so with your company, I'm walking in Times Square, say, for example, right? And we have these beautiful billboards. Tell me what's happening behind the scenes.
I'm really glad that you asked that question, and I think it's funny that everybody references Times Square. It is our crown jewel placement, but this is really, everywhere. The screen is not smart, but there are computers behind the screen that play the ads, and it's nothing more sophisticated than a screensaver in its most basic placement. Now, when you think about computers, though, if they're connected to the internet, they can be more intelligent. So what they're doing now is those computers are looking for ads on servers like ours, and those servers are then making decisions based on data points that range from weather, opt-in information, website visits, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is a transaction that goes from the screen to the computer to a server that then serves up ads in the physical space the same way that those servers serve up ads in digital space.
So now, do these digital billboards, do they have cameras that are doing like instant recognition, or are the digital billboards, the computers behind them, looking at, say, the unique identifier in our smartphone that can then be tied to some other database?
It's a combination, but in general terms, yes. There are sensors, not just cameras, Bluetooth detection, Wi-Fi, quote-unquote sniffers. Yeah, there are devices independent of the billboards themselves that collect information and transmit it back to the server as well.
And so now, do the digital billboards, do they change automatically based on who's around them?
Yes, based on who's around them. We are currently working on a motion detection to be able to change an ad midway if the person that is in front of the screen, maybe walks away. Ads can also be changed after it's verified that that person in front of the screen is the intended audience. So they're becoming more and more sophisticated as time goes by.
Frank, as the ads get more targeted, we pay more for the ads because then basically our ROI will be more beneficial to us, correct? And so when we start looking at ads that are using your type of technology, what kind of ROI do clients typically experience?
The ROI that we're seeing has never been less than 2 times standard industry ROI, as high as 4 times to 8 times. And just to go back to the cost is actually reduced. And I always like to use the analogy of the early 2000s when the digital space went from cost per thousand impression buying to cost per click buying. The cost per click is obviously more valuable, but not that much more expensive, if more expensive at all, because you're actually contacting or reaching someone on the other side that wants the information that you're relaying or that you have to relay. So, I like to say that what we're doing is phenomenal when it comes to connecting advertisers and consumers more efficiently. So the actual cost goes down and the ROI goes up. Another way to say it is you don't have to spend $50,000 on a mass impression blast buy. You can spend as little as a few dollars to reach a few individuals, whether you're a small business or a Fortune 500 brand, and they're right there. The cost is low to begin with.
Okay, so let's say somebody's walking in front of your billboard. Is there a way for them to opt out other than just turning their phone off?
That's a great question. And, the short answer is right now, there aren't enough controls in place to enable that. If they turn off their phone, that's, a good first step. If they drop it in a bucket of water, that's probably a better second step. But, more and more, I think, as you see things like GDPR out of Europe, TCPA, CCPA, all of these different acts that are coming out, you're going to start to see a centralized database. For instance, GDPR is based on the right to be forgotten and the right to control what information you share and when. And I think that more and more you're going to start to see these acts leading to a centralized database that allows consumers to control that information so that they don't have to drop their phone in a bucket of water.
Yeah, right. And nobody wants to do that. When you are making your pitch, I'm just curious, when you're making your pitch to various companies and ad agencies, what kind of objections does 5-tier hear?
If you had asked me that same question 18 months ago, I could have given you 10. But more and more, the market has come around on both sides, advertisers and agencies and consumers. A year and a half ago, we were hearing objections like, well, we don't buy that way. And a lot of times, if you looked at the buying ecosystem, those objections came from a more traditional mindset of buying. And it wasn't that it was a wrong objection, it was just unfamiliar. And now what we're seeing are digital media buyers, social media buyers, mobile media buyers coming in and saying, oh yeah, we get it. So we can just wrap this into our digital, mobile, social ad buy and complement the traditional buy. So we're not interrupting the status quo. We encourage a balanced buy for larger advertisers. But, again, going back to the early 2000s when CPMs online moved to cost per click, we're starting to see a balance of both. But we aren't getting, nearly as many objections as we used to.
So how long does the ad stay on the screen?
Depends on the network. So typical highway billboard is anywhere between 7.5 and 8 seconds. Times Square billboards, most of them are 15 seconds. Doctor's office waiting rooms are 30 seconds. TV spots, obviously you have your 15, your 30, your 60. We also work in streaming audio. So it really depends on, the screen or the speaker on the other side of the ad.
So I'm going to ask you a question because you're an entrepreneur, I can tell. I mean, you're throwing stuff against the wall, you're seeing what sticks, and this is a phenomenal business that you've built. As you were building the company, what surprised you the most?
Ooh, that's a great question, and thanks for the compliment. So I would say the most surprising thing over the last 12 years, especially when we transitioned into the platform, was the fact that it fell on deaf ears when we thought we had a great value proposition from the beginning.
Right, but you know what? Maybe you're just a little bit ahead of your time, right?
Thank God time came around because I'm very happy that I'm still sitting here and able to be on shows like yours.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us today, Frank. Really interesting stuff. And for those of you at home looking to escape ads from things like these smart digital billboards, as I mentioned, you can turn your phone's location services off, as well as Bluetooth, or heck, maybe even your whole phone to be safe. Take a moment to also check the permissions in your phone settings for each app on your phone. And for more breaking news that affects your privacy and security, head on over to Komando.com and click the link at the top of the homepage and sign up for our free security alert newsletter. I'll only send you email when breaking news happens. Hey, thanks for watching. Now, a few things. Don't forget to click the like button and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for more digital know-how, check out all these other great links.